I love being in a podcast situation where I feel comfortable to tell the whole story because it's kind of
Do it. Do
kooky.
it.
Because it starts with the Broadway show album of Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh,
My mother had two Broadway shows in her collections, mostly classical music that I grew up on. So I
okay.
love Beethoven and Mahler. I'm a classical music fan. But she had Man of La Mancha and Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay.
Fiddler on the Roof has a dream sequence in it. It's a huge musical number. It's like 12 minutes long. It's crazy musical theater. And it's on the album with a scene from the show where he, the lead, is going to tell a dream to his wife. She says to him in that scene that starts off this big musical number, "Tell me what you dreamed, and I'll tell you what it meant." Now, I heard that phrase 1,000 times from the time I was, 2 years old till, whenever. So that idea lived in me from that phrase. When I was 15 years old, my mother's bookshelf was always a source of fascination to me. I was always looking for interesting things there. And she was getting a master's in social work, and Freud's interpretation of dreams showed up on her shelf when I was 15. So I read it because I was
Mhm.
captivated by my dreams from the time I was 3 years old. I have vivid dream memory from early dreams at like 3 years old. So I read it. Now, I don't know what I got from Freud at 15, but I certainly understood that dreams were valuable. They were elevated in the world of psychology, and they were thought to be interpretable. He used the word analysis. I now prefer the word interpretation. So when I was in high school, as kids and adults like to do, it's a common social interaction. Say, I had a crazy dream
Mhm.
last night.
Yeah,
And
all the
I just remembered Golda. And I was like, tell me what you dreamed, and I'll tell you what it meant. And I don't know what sort of chutzpah led me to do that, but I did it. And I immediately began to get this fabulous feedback from what my intuitive mind would have to offer. And
time.
people would widen their eyes and go, wow, that's so fascinating. And that experience was so yummy to me that
Yeah.
I followed that breadcrumb my whole life, which eventually led to a doctorate in psychology and 4 books on dreams, right? But
Wow.
it started with just hearing a story.
Mhm.
That's just a story. The
Yeah.
language that the story is told in, though, is symbol. And
Yes.
each symbol has a universal meaning based on what it is, what its use is, what its essence is. An animal as a symbol is what its qualities out in the world are, right? The
Right.
animal totem medicine. Well, you just got to look at the animal to see what that is. It's what they do, how they act. So, similarly, anything that shows up in a dream can carry this universal meaning. My
Yeah.
mind hears those stories and can feel and grab the universal meaning behind them really,
Mhm.
really
Easily.
fast. It's
Yeah.
the speed that allows me to hear the dream and be doing that while I'm hearing the dream. There's no time differentiation. Whereas if I didn't have this gift, I might type
Uh,
out the dream and be able to look at, well, this means that. And a cup of water means bringing something near me
right.
that I
Yeah.
need. A writing implement, helps me express. The refrigerator keeps things fresh longer. So I can
Right.
tell the story about the story based on the items, universal meaning based on its use and essence.
Mhm.
You could do that too. If I
Right.
held up a pencil, we wouldn't have somebody in the group saying, no, it doesn't write. Everybody would agree that this pencil writes, but it's temporary because it's erasable.
Mhm.
There's the meaning of pencil that would be different if it were a pen,
Mhm.
permanent. You're nodding your head. You're like, oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense. My
Yeah.
gift is the speed at which I can do that so that I can present an idea of what a dream might be, meaning without interfering by projecting. Meaning, if you have a dream about your mother, I'm not going to interpret your dream through the lens of my mother issues.
Right.
I'm going to
Yeah.
be objective, which is very hard to do, which is why therapists are trained not to do this
Mm.
and never to interpret somebody's dream. But
Wow. Are they?
oh God, yes. When I was in grad school, the conversations I would have, I remember having a conversation with a fellow student in the hallway about it. It's like, well, we're trained never to interpret people's dreams. I just very snottily said, yes, you shouldn't. But I trust the gift that I have. It's a
Yes.
powerful God-given gift, and it transcends the idea of, oh, don't do that. I also believe this, and this is my last thing I'll say about this. I respect the dreamer's consciousness drawing to them what their soul is calling for. So if a person has a dream and they find themselves in front of me 2 days later, then my coming towards them is a function of the sacred unfolding of consciousness itself. And
Right.
therefore, I'm the right and perfect person to be interpreting that dream for their soul's journey.
Yeah, you become part of it.
That's right.
I've had listeners call me and say, "Hey, can you help me interpret the stream?" Just because
Because
I
they
have so
know of
many.
your,
Yes,
right,
they know
your
of my dream.
ongoing relationship. Have you found those conversations juicy and satisfying?
I do,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm the same. Like, I'm not going to try to relate it to anything I've ever had.
That's right.
There's almost like this inquiry, right? That slowly lets them really understand,
Perfect.
what it means for them. What I want to ask you about is that there are some, I would say, collective ideas,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
the pencil can erase, and the pen can't. And I would also say there's archetypes that
Yep.
may collectively mean something. But then you have these more unique,
Mm.
more specific to one's journey for myself seem to be giving me messages or leading me into a direction that maybe when I'm unconscious, I'm not able to connect the dots.
You're talking about is what's possible when the rational mind
Hmm.
isn't interfering with
Yeah.
our intuitive connection to other realms that we connect to through what the psychologists would call the unconscious, where the shaman might call universal mind, right?
Hmm.
It's our thinking mind that keeps us safe. It keeps us from bumping into the furniture and from, killing each other. But we identify with that mind as if that's who we are, and it's not. But when we go to sleep, that rational thinking mind is also asleep. So it doesn't interfere with the
That's
other ways that we experience information that transcends these realms that are
right.
different from our conscious awareness realm.
Right. It
That's
makes so
why
much
in
sense.
dreams we get to have things like visitations from loved ones who have passed away, portend events that are about to come,
Right.
dreams that are shared between people who are close. And if they wind up having a conversation in the morning, they can find out, oh my God, we both had the same dream last night. Right.
Right.
And all of these things are possible because the rational mind that would judge or negate or question or not believe is also asleep.
Right. And I think I came to that because it's not like something you can look into. I actually do have a few dream dictionaries next to my bed. So it's not something you can look up in a dream dictionary it's those kind of dreams.
Right. And I think that it's one of the things that's so juicy about diving into your dream life for getting more acquainted with the pedestrian dreams that you're having, writing them down, just having a
Yes.
juicy ongoing conversation between waking consciousness and the what is delivered to us at night. Once we've initiated ourselves into this open conversation between conscious mind and unconscious mind,
Hmm.
now we're putting ourselves in the right place to be
Hmm.
opened up to mystical and download experiences where we do, in fact, as you described, receive information from other realms that is transcending the psychologically driven, chaotic dream where we're working out fears and anxieties so that we can wake up the next day and do life on life's terms. We're also connected to much greater places that are, I think, assisting us, but that we can't see or touch while we are
Right.
awake.
So I think I was speaking on some dreams of mine that came unconsciously. Absolutely. Like I had no idea some of the messages that were coming through until later when they started to be
Ah,
part of the puzzle.
yeah.
However, there are times where you can, well, I have. I mean, just the other night I did it. There was
Mhm.
this night that I was missing my dad and I was like agonizing almost. I remember like the grief had come and it's been like 8 years, but the grief came on so strong and I was tossing and turning and it was almost like an anxiety that I couldn't shake. And so I just said, well, I just really miss you, Dad. Can you visit me in my dream? And sure enough, he did.
Yeah.
I don't remember like a lot of details, but I just remember seeing him really good. I mean, it wasn't like a big dream, but it happened. And I felt like I really called it on. But because I'm so used to this dream world and I've been including it in my life for so long, I almost have a little control. I mean, it doesn't always work, but it seems like if I want to have an answer to something,
Yeah.
I can often get it.
I think this is why people are attracted to learning more about how to have lucid dreams.
Mhm. Okay.
Because this is a thing out there. I've never chased
Yeah.
this as an idea. Like, I've
Mhm.
never gone to a workshop to increase my lucid dreaming. But when I'm asked about this or to talk about, like, why are people so interested and what's the value of like trying to get more lucid in your dream life, is exactly what you just described. That when we do, we get opened up to way more than just a dream experience.
Mhm.
This waking life is a form of a dream, it's a layer of dreaming.
Mhm.
Maybe when we sleep, we're at a deeper level of the same thing. And then
Overall.
when we pass out of our bodies, we go into yet another dream. We just keep waking up to level after level after level. And so I do think that just by opening the door to having a relationship with your dreams, whatever level mystical abilities is in there nationally becomes developable.
Mm. Gosh, I'm just not that person that can just like sit here and bring in some mediumship, for your grandma or whoever. I'm just not that person. Like my spiritual gifts are all kind of subtle like this. Their dreams are
Yeah.
real big synchronicity. Synchronicity is another huge one. So I always feel like something's going on. I think maybe I'm onto it too. It's my rational mind that gets in the way. And so I have to be shown in a different way because I do have ADHD. Maybe that has something to do with it.
But certainly, as we get more sort of conscious of these gifts, we do get to do what you talked about, guide and direct
Hmm.
what's occurring or what's immediately coming over the horizon.
Okay.
When we're in our dream state, we would never question the idea that something magical appearing just happened or that we created
Sure.
anything, because that's the nature of dreams. But waking
Mhm.
life is just as magical, and we are co creating powerfully. And when we know that and we operate in co creation, I think life is more graceful. If nothing else, it's gentler in some ways. Maybe gentle's a bad word because life ain't gentle, but
Right.
I think the brutality of life is easier when we feel like we're not alone, that we're connected to something much greater than us, which I think dream work delivers.
Oh my, yeah. And there definitely is this level of awareness, in the dream world and outside of the dream world that, of course, if you're not in that awareness, then you'll never ever see it. And, I love when people who don't dream a lot, like my partner doesn't dream. He hardly ever dreams, he says. And so then he'll have a dream. The other day, he had this most amazing dream. And I just sat there and listened. And I feel like
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
were like,
epic.
tell me more. Like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. It was so vivid to him. And it just was exciting. And I'd love to hear my kids' dreams as well. I have four children. With one of them, my daughter, who's about to be 25 on 2/22, she was born
Hmm.
2/22/99 at 5:55.
Okay,
Right?
lots of
Yeah. Hello, Pisces.
numerical synchronicity there.
Yeah. So I have recurring dreams all the time, but this one was for years. And I'm telling her about this dream. And then she starts finishing my sentence. And she's like, "What?
Wow.
I have a
The
recurring dream of
same.
that." But what was crazy, in her dream, she's hiding. And in
Mhm.
my dream, I'm looking for something and I don't know what I'm looking for.
Well, clearly her.
So cool.
Well, this is another one of the mystical dreams, that dream experiences that happen because of this, dive into the connected universal mind, and the lightness of the limiting mind is the idea that we do share dreams.
Mm.
And I have never had that experience that I'm aware of. Of course, the way you find out is you talk about your dreams, right?
Yeah.
And like you and your daughter did. So it's certainly possible that I've shared dreams with people and haven't spoken about them. But it was surprising to me when I was writing the book that I just put out on psychic dream phenomenon, How many people have had wild, crazy shared dream
Yes.
experiences? And this is not the first time I've heard that in the shared experience dream, it wasn't like having the mirror of dream, but like the connectedness.
Like
In
an
other words,
interaction.
he's hiding, you're looking. This is not the first time I've heard such a
Wow.
thing
Okay.
where what one person was doing was being invertedly received by the other dreamer in a bookend like thing like this. She's hiding, you're looking.
Yeah, isn't that so cool?
Well, it's evidence that we are really more connected than we are separate. And the
Yeah, for
separate
sure.
feeling is what causes all of the consternation on the planet is this idea that
Yeah.
we feel like we're not one.
Right, but we are.
But we are. And
Yeah.
so all of that enmity that's out in the world is coming from a world that doesn't understand that we are all one.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more you accept that, the more experiences like this I feel like you have.
Absolutely.
So that
Absolutely.
same daughter, so when I took some classes on hypnosis, past life regressions. And so
Mm,
my kids were always my guinea pigs. I mean,
of course,
since they were young
great.
ages. And, I had known about this recurring dream that she would have where she would be naked in her dream and she would wake up and have a funny taste in her mouth. And she had told me about it over the years. But so I bring her into this past life regression and I'm going to take her through the womb, which is my womb.
Right. How
Kind of funny,
ironic.
which is
It's
kind of funny. We
fascinating.
never actually got into the past life because
Huh.
when I brought her to the womb, all of a sudden she remembered this dream. Because when I first had her, she was taken away from me. And when she came out the womb, she was choking
Oh
on amniotic fluid.
my
And she
God.
remembered the taste in that past life regression. And so, what was beautiful though is I could lead her through, you are safe now.
Yeah. Oh,
And she never had that
the
dream again.
dream again, of course. Well, this is how we heal trauma. That is, part of her was still there. There's a little energetic part of her from that moment of choking, even though she was an newborn. That's what happens. Energy split off and stays where the injury
Yeah.
occurs. And what we have to do is we have to go back to the source of the injury, re-experience it, and that's how the healing happens. This is why PTSD is such a brutal experience, because the body knows this. The
Yeah.
body is trying to re-experience the injury because it knows that that's how the
Mhm.
healing happens. The mind says, do not do that, and
Right.
that pull is PTSD, right?
Yeah.
So just by giving your daughter the environment in which she could re-experience the
Oh,
trauma, it
no
went
idea.
away because she re-experienced it.
I mean,
And
we
you
had,
added the love, the safety,
yeah.
so that that infant who was terrified is then re-experiencing that terror less terrified.
Can you believe that?
No,
I
I
mean,
can.
we
Of course I
had
can. It's
no
fabulous.
idea, I know you can. You've heard all the kinds of dreams. They're wild, right? But she was taken away from me for hours. I mean, I didn't see her again for like 4 hours, which
That's
was
unusual, isn't it?
very scary,
Yeah, I
because she had
bet.
to be on oxygen and it was, 25 years ago too. But she also connected to how many times she feels alone. And she's in a house. I mean, we have a lot of kids. We got a lot of people.
Oh, but she has in her little body an experience that this place in a body is isolating, separate, alone, and
Isn't that
disconnected.
crazy?
No,
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
and it just like
Wow.
neither one of us, knew that that was affecting her. It just was really beautiful. So I also have had past life regressions where my dreams came up.
Interesting. I'm asked often, how do you know a dream is reflecting a past life?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the answer is very unsatisfying because the answer is like it just feels like it.
Yeah.
Then I think a little bit more, it's like past life dreams tend to be very sort of environmentally cogent, meaning it looks and feels like you're in an environment, as opposed to the way dreams can chaotically move you from environment to environment to environment so radically that
Yes.
you're just tripping around places. But
Right.
there are dreams that have a feeling of
Yes, I've dreamed it.
cohesion, And when I've heard them, I always know my impulse will be, this feels or sounds like a past life dream. But I'll tell you, I've never had one
Wow.
and been like, this feels like a past life dream because I'm
Mm.
in the experience. But it does sound like your dream vocabulary is letting you connect to some of those things like past lives, which I do believe is available to us much more powerfully in the dream state than in the waking state
Yeah.
or the hypnotic state,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Either way, you got to alter how the mind is working.
Hmm.
Even hypnosis is what I described of the dream state where the rational mind is asleep. The
Right.
hypnotic trance suggestions is designed to get the rational mind to simply be quieter,
Yeah.
hypnotized. That's why hypnosis and sleep are
Right.
similar.
Or
Yeah.
meditation. I think I've also had, so I had this, and maybe you've heard this a lot too, but I would have this character come into my dream often.
Mm.
And one time he showed up in my meditation. And I literally in my meditation was like, holy cow, what are you doing here? Whoa, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you're open at the top, like you are, all of the potential mystical experience I think that the human body is capable of happen. And you're clearly well wired
Well, in
for
I don't know
that.
about that. I don't hear things. I don't, I don't experience that kind of mediumship. Some I have a few times, but my strength is I'm just a very visual person. There are some people say I'm not a visual person. I can't do the guided meditations and see what people see. I mean, do people always dream in visual?
Well, I that's a great question. And certainly, hmm, there's so much similitude in how people describe dreams, and there's just tons of data that would lead us to believe that there is a way in which all people are experiencing the visual nature of dreams. But outside of that, we are all very different in how we contextualize energy and move about the space, like really radically different, right? So, and just like as you described, the perception inside the brain, some people are very visual and some people are very auditory, and some people
Yeah.
can't picture things at all because they have a kind of an aphasia that doesn't allow them to. So, I think that even just intuitively hearing you say how profoundly visual you are oriented just as a person in a body, and that dreams take us into places that are visually experienced, might there might be some correlation there, though it
Okay.
might not
Yeah,
be
that makes sense.
scientifically describable. It's certainly interesting to me that I'm talking to somebody who clearly, organically, and naturally has a lot of mystical experiences in the dream world. And then the visual way that you orient and that experience might be one of the reasons. I don't know if it's a reason why, but I
Right.
think there's a correlation.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, in my journey, there's been a lot of dreams, like I mentioned, that have helped me,
Hmm.
discover things, decode things, that I wouldn't know in this mind. Like for instance, one time I had this man come into my dream and he wears, and this is that character. He always wears like this
Ooh,
cloak, okay? And he covers his head and it's down. And I always, and I used to write down my dreams, but now I digitally create them or I do art
beautiful.
because that's the only way I could process it.
Yep.
I process it that way. So he comes in and we're sitting by a lake or a river and he holds his hand out and he has this like oyster shell and he tells me, this is the yolk. And a drop of water comes down. I've told this a million times, comes down, hits the substance, goes into the water, and there's life. And I don't get to ask him who he is. And that bothered me because I was like,
Yeah.
he just went away.
One would want to know.
Right. I know. But that same night, I was having stomach issues. So if you're up a lot, in the
Right.
night,
That's
this
right.
is a great time for you to remember your dreams.
That's right.
This woman comes in my room same night, puts her hand on my stomach, and she's healing it. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, thank you so much. And then she starts to leave out of my bedroom because I'm in my bedroom in this dream. And I said, wait, 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 who are you? And she turns around and she says, oh, I'm the hunter's wife. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
what?
The hunter.
What the frick is the hunter's wife? Took me, I mean, I
Oh,
was,
honey, you didn't. It took you a minute? Of
no, it
course.
took me a minute.
Ah, it's obvious to me. You've
Well,
got some fabulous masculine feminine integrated guidance system.
it was the beginning of my journey with all of that.
Makes me want to share sort of my story that's similar.
Share it,
Um,
please.
so let me start with this that like I've been on an intuitive path since I'm 15 years old. I am 60 now, so it's like I'm well into the journey. But the idea of having a connection with my inner guides that I knew and understood and had relationships with, that came very late for me. I was even told intuitively by people over the years, it's like, oh, you know how to listen to your guides. You are absolutely in their arms. So
Okay.
the fact that you can't tangibly connect, you don't need to really worry about that. I
No idea.
accepted that because I could feel that.
Hmm.
My life has reflected that. I've lived a life that has felt well guided in this way. Okay. But in the last 5, 8 years, I have come to a very specific and visceral understanding of my inner guidance system. And while there are several, I'm going to talk about two. There's a main one whom I call mother. And there's a side one that I call teacher. Teacher is wildly powerful, humongous vibration. Mother, not so much, very little oomph, but she's at the top. She's the lead. Teacher speaks through me every time I'm asked a question, whether it's on a podcast, in a session, in a class, or on the street. If somebody says, what way is Sunset Boulevard? I can feel my inner guidance turn on. And teacher says, go up 3 blocks, make a left, right? That's how powerful teacher is in my experience. But mother keeps me safe. Mother tells me when to rest. Mother knows how this little body of mine that explodes with energy works. So it's mother that keeps all of the spin in line, but she doesn't have a lot of power. I know this to be so. Now, let's go back a lot of years. I had, never forget this, it was the night or the morning that Princess Diana was killed.
Mm.
So we got to
Yeah,
start
I
with that.
remember that day
It
too.
was a rip in the force, in the fabric of consciousness, because this
Right.
huge event that happened at night in Paris. So the next morning in the
Mhm.
States at 5, 6, 7 in the morning, it had happened. The world was ripped apart.
Yeah.
What was going on? I was with a man I was seeing. He was actually up early watching TV. I was still sleeping in bed, and I had a night terror.
Mm.
So I'm in the room, I'm paralyzed, I can't move, I have that terrorizing experience, and I know what to do with this. I don't just like, I know to use my skill to lean in, to
Okay.
get past the fear and just breathe into the state so that it's not just about, I can't move. It's like there's something possible.
Yes. Okay.
And I segue out of the night terror into the most vivid, like lagoon in nature, sitting in like a canoe. And there's this beautiful, sort of feminine, female seeming presence. She's very
Hmm.
pretty. It's idyllic. And she says to me, oh, I'm going to get emotional. She says, this is the only time I'm ever going to get to connect with you. This is it. But
Mm.
I'm here.
Ooh, goosebumps all over.
And now I didn't understand it at the time at all. But now I do. It was mother. She doesn't have enough power to make herself known to me in that way. In fact, she only really has sort of two words to me, and one is rest.
Mm.
She's
Good
always
one.
like, so I'm like, I'll be in a twisty, breathy sort of phenomenon in a moving meditation because I do a lot of moving meditation, and she'll say, rest. But that's like all she has. She's like,
Yeah.
she helps me. Oh, she has another phrase. The body knows what to do. which it does, right? So, and all of this moving, the body. So I am flabbergasted at this moment in my
Mm.
journey to be able to put together numinous experience I never forgot that I knew was powerful. And now to have an understanding today that that's my guide. That
Yeah.
was mother. She's not fake. I didn't make it up.
Yeah. Right. That's how I feel all the time with those kind of dreams. When they start to connect to your world, you're like, whoa, I can't believe that. That same hooded dude one time, and this was, God, probably 8 years ago. One time he told me I needed to take a sabbatical.
Did you listen?
What was so funny, I sat there and thought about sabbatical. I'm like, isn't that like a Catholic word? That's all I could connect
Oh,
to.
oh.
So I called my friend and she goes, well, my husband, I know in his, because he works corporate, he said you could take a sabbatical. I still have never really put that one together. Actually, I never did.
Sabbatical, certainly in
Yeah.
academia, means a kind of
Rest.
respite for study.
Oh, for
Yeah.
study.
Yeah, you don't take a sabbatical to like relax. It's not a vacation. And in the world of
Oh,
academia, if you go on sabbatical, you're doing something. You're being given permission to leave the rigors of your academic demands to pursue another academic demand.
oh my
So
gosh.
maybe it was about going deeper.
That is pretty much when I started the podcast, and started to shift my entire
Well, that's interesting
reality.
to me. See, now there, that's an experience of like I happen to know about academia a little bit, right? And what a sabbatical is, because I know people who've taken them, right? But that's how it works, where you have an experience where you say sabbatical, and what is that? And then I happen to know a little something about that. And so I just
Yeah.
present it to you, not
And it
telling
makes
you that
sense.
that's what it is necessarily, although I happen to speak authoritative. I have authoritative tone. I have to be very careful about that because it sounds like I know what I'm talking about all the time. And so I've learned how to, this is what I do now as like a responsible man today as an adult. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm speaking very authoritatively, but I don't really know any more than I just said.
Oh,
I
totally.
present to you sabbatical just as an idea based on sabbatical's meaning, sabbatical's essence from a world that you might not dwell in, but that's the essence of the word sabbatical in academia. And then suddenly you go like, huh, that's an interesting context to put in. It's that it landed on you as a point of curiosity and not a point of negation is something I have experienced countless thousands of times
Yeah.
by doing what I do by tapping into my gift and saying, here's what I see.
Hmm. Wow.
So,
So interesting. Of course, most people, you mentioned it earlier, have dreams of these animals and stuff that represent things. I had taken some shaman classes, learned how to journey, and really I only did it because I was led. I was trying to connect with my ancestor, who was a First Nation, and he was known as a great sorcerer. And then later, converting to Christianity through the
wow.
Jesuits, forced.
Oh, wow.
I had already read a bunch of Sandra Ingerman stuff and was fascinated by, just these ancient practices that are coming back into our consciousness today, which dreams is such a big part of them.
In fact, I would say it created it. We created the idea of what became eventually, unfortunately, religion starts with gathering around the fire.
Mm.
What would we talk about? There'd be two things we would talk about: the hunt and our dreams.
Wow.
And because First Nations people were living so close to relationship with the earth herself, that dynamic interaction of human beings and the immediate land winds up being replicated in the dream state. So what are you going to dream of? You're going to dream of what you're seeing. Now, First Nations people weren't playing video games, so they're not dreaming of zombie apocalypses.
Right.
They're going to dream of buffalo stampedes
Right.
and hawks
Animals.
and right.
Yeah.
So that then the inner world becomes storytelling.
Mm.
Storytelling becomes one of the most important civilization inducing cohesion mechanisms, drawing a group of people together, creates group identity. You keep following that up over thousands of years. Now you get stories that become myths, or myths that become beliefs, and beliefs that become religions. And today we're sort of in
Yeah.
a world where we have to correct for 2000 years of, one religion sort of taking over the world and sort of, eradicating the mystery and the beauty of what is here on earth. And I think that we're in a crisis moment on the planet. And one could argue that we are going from a world created through polarization of 2000 years of patriarchy, and what will save us is somehow ushering in a more holistic, humanized experience of the
Mm,
collective in, a spiritual sort of container that isn't about divide and I'm right and you're wrong. It's that we're all right. There's only one place to get to, and all roads lead to the divine. All roads lead to
right.
the divine.
Yes. You know, in my dreams, oftentimes I see people I've never seen in my life,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe I have.
No, I think that we do have this profound connection to things that are not us, that might actually exist on the planet.
Mm,
Like, so having dreams of people that you don't know, but that you feel like you don't, they may exist
yeah.
in three-dimensional form.
Mm,
So I've had two fully lucid dream experiences in my life.
mhm.
So the most innocuous form of lucid dreaming is just you have a dream and you're like, oh, I think I'm dreaming. Like, that's lucid dreaming. But it is possible to develop the ability to have a lucid experience of your dreaming more, which I've never done. I've never wanted to chase that. But because I've spent my entire life in a meditative practice and expanding my own capacity to experience the mystical, one night I had a dream that I was sitting on my living room couch. This is fairly recently, too. This is within the last 10 years. That was it. I'm sitting on my couch, but I'm telling you, honey, I'm as awake as I am right now. And I don't
Wow.
mean close to feeling like I'm awake. I mean, I felt awake, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm going, oh my God, I'm sleeping. I'm sleeping right in there. That's the bedroom.
Wow.
I'm asleep. But oh my God, I'm sitting on this couch. And it was one
Oh,
of the most extraordinary experiences of my life, in a life with a lot of extraordinary experiences.
and just sitting on a couch.
Just sitting on a couch, but having this full, oh my God, look what's possible. So, about a year later, I had another one. This one wasn't 100% vividly awake.
Okay.
There was a sepia tone. So I
Okay.
was fully
Yeah.
alive and awake and alert, only it wasn't bright light. Everything was dimmed with some brown.
Okay.
Like, okay, still a lucid dream, still like I'm in a park, and I see over there a park bench, and there's some men sitting around the park bench, and that's my destination. So I
Okay.
walk up to the park bench, other than the sepia, as awake as I am right now, and I
Yeah.
say to the group, there's five of them, I'm the sixth, I say, you know that we're all dreaming this, right? And they all just sort of looked up and nodded. And they were like, yep, yep, yep. And the sensation was six men who live alive on the planet at this time in
Okay.
bodies separately, who do
We're
not
there
know each
too.
other. All six of us had a lucid dream of being at a park bench that night. You could not deconvince me of that with nothing. If
Wow.
you were torturing me, I might pretend to not believe it anymore.
No.
But
But yeah,
outside of that, you could not extricate the idea that that was a bona fide thing.
right. And you may have had dreams of that before, but that
Absolutely,
one
but
was
didn't remember them
absolutely
in that
going.
vivid, lucid way. Absolutely right. So
Right.
back to
Mhm.
the question that at hand, which I sometimes get asked as if I have the authoritative answer. Like, I've been asked this sort of, there must be some like urban myth that you can only dream of faces that you have seen before. I was like, how the frick would I know that? Like, I don't, that's not a knowable, answerable question. It's not scientific. It's, but the real question to ask is, do you now believe something that you didn't believe the day before you had that dream?
Oh,
And the answer to that is
right.
absolutely. Like, I will never forget standing
No.
talking to a young man. I even remember his name. His name was John. That's all I remember. I remember where I connected with him as well, but he found out what I did and he came up to tell me the dream of being visited by his grandmother after she passed. He was driving down to San Diego. He was falling asleep at the wheel. He had to pull over to the side of the road to sleep for a moment just to save, his ass from not crashing on the freeway. And he falls into a dream that's really a visitation. And it's so profoundly vivid. And it's a visitation, it's not a chaotic storyline dream. Visitation dreams are singular in setting. They usually take place somewhere in nature or a park bench or sometimes in the room that you're sleeping in. The person comes, there's no chaotic scene changes, there's one
Mm,
conveyed message. It's not even always verbal. And the message is always something like, I love you or all is well, but they feel very different than a dream. And
right.
to talk to this young man and have his eyes filled with tears, not because he misses his grandma,
Mm,
but because he now knows he's not disconnected from her because there is no death. The
right.
connection transcends death. And now he is transformed by that dream experience. And while I haven't seen him since that day we talked, I know what happens when we are transformed by mystical experiences.
Right.
The rest of our lives are led, including the possibility that mystical experiences are guiding us every step of the way.
And you're not going to forget that dream.
That's right. He will not forget it and he'll tell it. And it'll
Yeah, he can
be
see
the
it.
evidence
Yes.
of this is where I changed how I believe we are separate, connected, etc.
Right. I wish people would trust that because I think that,
Yes.
that's what I started to do. And the more I trusted it, the more clear they came. Because I mean, I have dreams all the time. They're irrelevant, right? And I still remember them. I write them down. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's not they're irrelevant. I shouldn't say that. Maybe they're more simple. They're not a big
Right.
part of
They're
my
not grabbing,
journey
they're not
part,
like demanding your attention.
right? They're not a visitation, right? But
Right.
I'll have a dream
Yeah.
about my dad, but it's different than what I had just the other day.
That's right. That absolutely. They'll show I and then when someone tells me that, I say that's a process dream. It includes your
Right.
dad, and your job
Yes.
there isn't to think that it's dad, but like a reflection of the
Or a memory.
authoritative part of you, the father in you, the guide in you that was created by your relationship with him in waking life. So he'll show up, but he's representing an aspect of the dreamer. But in visitation dreams, man, there ain't no doubting it.
There's there's a
They are
different
there.
vibe.
Very different feeling.
Trust that vibe.
Yep.
I tell you once, one of the most this is a dream that I don't really remember all the details, but I had it twice in one night. Those are the weird ones, right? Where you're having this dream forever and it keeps coming back. So I had a dream that I was in this auditorium. I was in like college and I'm sitting there and I actually remember there was a person who had a striped shirt on, like down a few rows. I do remember that part. Don't remember what we were learning, and I'd have to go look at more details of my journal, but it was interesting. So I wake up and I had this sense that I was on a break, that I actually wasn't to
That's
wake up. I had to go back, but I was on a break. Isn't
funny.
that so weird?
No,
So
that's
I
bizarre.
go back and I am back. And when I woke up the very next morning, I remembered all of this. My brain felt like I had been sitting in school all day long. You know that feeling
Yep. Yep.
when you're in like a class or something and you're just like having to take all this information in? And I have no idea what it was. But when I first woke up, I wasn't sure which one was real.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
You had a mystical download.
okay,
The idea that we are downloaded with information from these other dimensional experiences that we are connected to. I mean, this is just all so woo
right,
woo. Like this is the wooiest woo of language. And I'm half scientist, right? So it's like
right.
it's not always easy for me to step off the scientific perspective and talk about the woo,
Yeah,
though. Make no mistake about it, I am as woo
right.
as they get. But I also like to know what's provable.
Yeah.
So, but the idea in the woo woo sort of equation of things that this place, these other dimensions that we're always connected to, that we are more connected to in the dream state,
Mhm.
has information. We are
Well, I
like
just
these
wish I knew what it
computers.
was.
Well, Well, but that's the thing. The idea would be you don't need to know. It was like putting in a new
Like, yes,
operating program, like a software that you would in the, I'm aging myself now. You just stream them in. But once upon a time, you needed like a disk, and you would stick it to your computer as a download. You download the new software, and you can do new things. So you don't need to know what was being downloaded. We can just trust that your humanity is functioning better, more gracefully, more powerfully because some upgrade was downloaded into you in that experience, which is why your brain was so tired because
oh
on
my God.
some other dimensional level, you were working.
All right. I mean, I wish I would have had you all these dreams
That would have
ago.
been fun. That is human, universal, and everyone has the potential to tap into it, but just kind of like singing. Everybody who can speak can sing, but that doesn't mean we want to listen to everybody who speaks.
Well, I would say I'm a perfect example of
Of
that. I
that,
sing
right?
all
Right.
the time,
So
but I
that's
don't
a
think I should.
function of the ear. A person has a good ear to replicate tone, then we want to hear them sing. It's called talent. And so intuitive perception follows a similar sort of model of everyone is intuitive.
Right.
Everyone can increase their ability to be intuitive. And I think focusing on your dreams is, and meditating during your waking life is the best way to nurture that. And
Hmm.
then you become an example of what is actually possible when you value increasing your macabra's ability to transmute and move multidimensionality in your body, and you get the gift of the upgrade.
Some people say, I can't dream. I try. I can't do
Mhm.
it. And so I've challenged those people, and I say, well, let me just show you what I do. And
Mhm.
I said, and from my experience, maybe nothing comes right away. But even when you wake up, if you just write down like what you felt, and then
Okay.
after you do, I said, it's almost like your brain begins to remember that this is what you're doing. So then all of a sudden you catch on.
You are killing me right now.
What did I do?
You spoke the thing that is the game changer to open
Okay.
the window of sleeping memory and waking availability to that memory. So here's how I describe it.
Okay. Yeah.
I say, all right, you got to, yeah, set the intention the night before, and you could do that formally. Make it a ritual, write it down. Dear self, dear higher self, dear whatever. I want to remember my dreams last night. Set the intention. You got to have the journal next to your bed, right? You got to have the least interruption between dream state and recording ability. Have it right near your bed. And then I say this, I say, the thing you've never heard before is go to the journal, write something,
Anything.
even
Even
if
if it's a
it's I don't
color.
remember
Right.
anything. And then
Yes.
you just
Yes.
said if even it's a color, that's
Yeah.
hysterical because I used to use as an example. Then
Sometimes
wait a
that's all I
moment
get.
and write something down, even if it's just like, oh, I saw a fuzzy orange ball,
Right.
right? You said it like write what you feel like.
What
Even
you
if you
feel.
have no memory, you could write what you feel like right there in the moment. The point is just as setting the intention is powerful, and without it, you're unlikely to have as much success with anything, right?
Hmm.
Setting intention. By going to the journal and writing something, even when you don't have an overt dream memory, you're setting the intention to your unconscious to hold that window of available memory open longer. The
Hmm.
dream imagery is being perceived by the brain in a different structure than the way the eyes perceive visual
Yep.
image, right? Because the eyes are closed. So our visual cortex is not generating the imagery of the dreams. In fact, what's really happening, and I'm not really that much of an expert on brain structure, what's really happening in dreams is the visual experience we're having is many, 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 many parts of the brain working together, and the whole neofrontal
Wow.
cortex is lit up in dreams, but it's not the eyes.
Mm.
So the minute you open your eyes, you're like
Yeah.
diminishing the quietude of the inner brain's experience of holding those images, which is why you can have a dream in the middle of the night thinking, I will never forget this dream.
Oh, I get so mad at myself.
Right, right, right. Because then you wake up in the morning and it's like, not
So
only don't you
often.
remember it, you might not even remember
No
that you were wanting to
one cares.
remember it.
Oh, I hate those. I'm like, I will never. This was so amazing.
But
Yeah.
you're the first person I have ever heard in like 30, 40 years of talking about this that actually had the notion
Yeah.
that the secret sauce
I
is you
didn't know.
going to the journal no matter what.
You know, I usually I go to my dreams before I go to any book.
I
Before
love
any
that.
book,
I
any
love
internet.
that.
And this is just because they have really supported this journey. This is what I
Go
do.
to the journal.
I
Yep.
said, even if I haven't dreamed in a while and I want to start again, I said, I'll just start that. And I said, sometimes it looks like this. It's just a scribble.
Right, right. But it is a moment where your conscious mind is saying to your unconscious that you're interested. And the unconscious,
Right.
I sometimes will describe as an 8-year-old child at the pool jumping in, wanting mommy to watch. Mom, look. So when we remember our dreams, it's like paying attention to the most sacred, intimate,
Mm,
vulnerable, and rich places inside of us. It's so intimate. And that state connects us to universal wisdom that we get through the collective
yeah.
connection, not only to each other, but to the divine. And
Oh
that's
my
what's available in the dream state.
It's amazing. It is so amazing. How long do we sleep? We sleep most of our lives, half of our lives.
That's true. Quite a bit of it. We go through about 3 to 5 REM cycles a night. We
Yeah.
spend more time in REM the later it is. So the first time you go into REM, you're probably not going to stay there for more than 2 or 3 minutes. And by the time you're in your final pre-waking REM cycle, you'll probably spend 6, 7, 8 minutes in REM.
Um,
So dreams are richer, longer, and much more memorable. And
mm.
we're certainly dreaming every time we go to sleep and move through the whole cycle. It's not possible to not dream. So people say, I
Wow.
don't dream.
There you
It's like,
go.
no, you just don't remember. Well, there's so much going on in the brain with dreams that includes cleaning out metabolic waste and forming short term memory. If you didn't dream, you'd be dead within a week or two.
Oh, that's interesting. So funny. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll drink a lot of water before bed, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm gonna dream tonight."
That's right. I'm going to wake up a few times and
I
remember my
think,
dreams from the
you know
middle of
what?
the
You
night.
are the man in my dreams. I'm telling you, this
Oh, thank
really
you,
was so
honey. This has
fun.
been
I just love
so
this
juicy and
conversation.
delightful.
You're
I've enjoyed
amazing.
every minute of it.
Tell everybody where they can find you. Tell them about your website and your book and
Yes.
your podcast.
MichaelLennox.com is sort of, the central hub to find out everything that I do. Michael Lennox, Michaellennox. My podcast that comes out every Sunday night at midnight is called Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. So I do the week's astrology, and then always interpret one dream at the end. And it's kind of like do dreams and astrology go that well together? It's like, I don't know, but they do
Well, it
with
is at
me
night.
because I'm both
Does.
a dream interpreter and an astrologer. So that's, why that is. And the new book that is coming out actually came out on January 8th, which is why we met and connected, is called Psychic Dreamer, Exploring the Connection Between Dreams and Intuition. And it's really just a collection of stories of many people's incredible mystical dream experiences presented to you with an idea that if you pay attention to your dreams, focus on a meditation practice, and really surrender to what's possible, your dreams will increase your intuition.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure getting to know you. I'd love to have you on in the future again.
Anytime, honey, I would do this again with you. This was so much fun. This was
Oh, it's so
so
fun.
easy and casual and relaxed and yummy. So thank you.